I'm curious, when you've been dating someone that they are actually in love with you, are there clear signs that someone truly loves you?
Such a good question. So I spoke to the world's leading expert, and I'll flag here as well that I'm a very, let's call it the earliest career researcher possible. I'm a PhD student. Everything that I've said in this conversation, I've done some research myself. We've run a couple studies, and one of them's in the write-up phase, one of them's under peer review. I'm active as a peer reviewer and go to speak at academic conferences, etc. But I'm still very, even though I'm an active researcher, I'm still very early. So everything that I've said so far, it's the work of other people, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of kind of my mission, let's say, as a person, is like,
To share
I
this
love my
information.
field, I love the researchers in my field, and I want all of their voices to be heard on platforms like this. So I spoke to Helen Fisher, who is someone who definitely doesn't need my amplification. She's very famous, but she's, I would say, the world leading expert in romantic love, understands it top to bottom, right? And what she told me is that the best proxy that we have, right? So there's all these symptoms of romantic love, but the most, if we're talking about in love, like acutely in love, the symptom that you're looking for is obsessive thinking about them all the time. Other things include, special meaning, right? So their car is now better than all the other cars. Their shoes are, the way they tie their shoes is so spectacular, you'd think it's adorable. Those sorts of, imputing special meaning, that's pretty common with people who are in love. And love is also really best understood as, and this also comes from her work, really best understood as three brain systems, right? There's lust, which I don't think I need to explain. There's, let's call it passionate love, romantic love, right? This acute honeymoon phase style love, which generally lasts, if things go really well, could last maybe 4 years, if you're lucky.
If you're in a long distance relationship.
Maybe a little longer. And the final form is attachment. So that's, when you're settled down with someone and you want that to last a long time. And there's even those feelings of stability and connection and deeper meaning. And, those passionate love feelings go away. And some people think, oh, what a disaster, I want to keep them. But those passionate love feelings come with a lot of what we were just talking about, right? They come with a lot of jealousy. They come with a lot of do you really want your life to be categorized by obsessing over a romantic partner for 40 years? It's like, there's more important things to be doing. A few years of that, I think, it's about right than other things.
If someone is in a relationship with someone right now and they've been cheated on by that person, but they've chosen to stay with them, man or woman, do you think it's possible, based on research or science that you've studied, that relationship can work, or that they can be faithful after infidelity?
I think we all know couples who have survived infidelity, right? And there's the kind of trite aphorism, best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. To an extent, that does seem to apply here. It's not the best predictor, but Kayla Knopp and her colleagues did a longitudinal study of people in relationships, so to say. And I believe it was Kayla Knopp. I'll have to double check that after the show. But there was a study in EndyCase that looked at, okay, what's your relationship history, right? Where are you coming from here? And then watched, how did this relationship play out? And excuse me if I'm misquoting the stat. I read this study 2 years ago. But I believe it was that people who had cheated in their past relation, I won't say a specific number. It was a multiple more likely. It wasn't like they're 10% more likely. It was like they're three times more likely to cheat again, right, than someone else taken neutrally, right? And that's previous relationship to current relationship. But I would say that it's like you gain so much information. Plenty of people don't cheat. Plenty of people never cheat their entire lives, right? Plenty of women, plenty of men, maybe even most. And so if someone does that to you, they've just given you, as you might say, a gift of giving you all this information about them as a person.
Right.
And I'm not damning cheaters. Plenty of, psychologically normal, good people make mistakes that they consider mistakes immediately, right? That happens. But this idea that it's like there are plenty of fish in the sea and you want to choose the one fish that already did that to you. But I would say that in speaking about this, I'm talking a lot about, I'm thinking in my mind, because of my own age, I'm thinking of, young relationships where hitting reset is pretty easy and finding someone new.
But if you have 10 years of relationship
and you've got
context,
a family and
different.
all this context, it's a little different. So I'm not making any blanket recommendations. I'm just saying that if someone has cheated on you, they're more likely to cheat on you than a random stranger on the street.
Do you feel like Gen Z is cheating more than other generations?
I don't see any evidence of that. If anything, young people are engaging in less risky sexual behaviors across the board.
Really? Why is that?
It's interesting. I mean, that is something where I'm gonna have to email you some names that you could talk to about that. Some people call it the mating crisis.
What is the mating crisis?
That people aren't mating as much.
Why is that?
Well, there's a bunch of different theories. It's not my area of expertise. I'm sure you can sense that I'm kind of uncomfortable speaking about it because I think it's a little bit. I'm very tentative about it. I'll just say that.
Right.
Like this idea that it's even a thing or that it's a bad thing.
Right.
I mean, is it such a bad thing that teenagers are having less casual sex? Is that really something that is that a problem that needs to be fixed? Is it such a problem that people
are
waiting longer before having sex for the first time? I don't know. And that's not the only, I'm probably dumbing it down. That's certainly not the only thing that people talk about the mating crisis. People talk about, various subcultures formed around, the state of not being able to mate and that sort of thing. And I appreciate that for some people, the mating market is probably especially hard now. But you wanted to ask about why it's happening. Well, one component that a lot of people who are experts in this talk about is the fact that there's risk reduction across the board, right? So it's not just that they're having less casual sex, they're also drinking less, smoking less, da-da-da-da. Another factor that you'll hear about is that in some ways, in some specific ways, and I'm being very careful here because it's not my area of expertise. I've heard other people who are experts say that there's somewhat more social conservatism in some ways, using that word very carefully. I'm not saying that Gen Z is super right wing. I just mean that they are in their social behaviors more conservative, right? And so they might be less interested in getting super drunk on a Friday night and finding a random person at a club to get naked with, right? That's for a lot of people, that's a relatively wild thing to do, and they don't do it often if they do it at all.